The Polish Minister of Justice must have been extremely excited today, as the Court of Justice of the European Union issued a ruling against the Constitutional Tribunal. Today, the Court of Justice of the European Union said that the Polish Constitutional Tribunal does not meet the requirements of an impartial and independent constitutional court, which is, after all, the most important body in our country. According to the Court of Justice of the European Union, the Constitutional Tribunal in Poland does not meet the requirements of an independent and impartial court previously established by law due to irregularities in the appointment of 3 of its members and its president. The issues raised by the Court of Justice of the European Union do not exist at present, meaning we currently have a properly elected president of the Constitutional Tribunal. We have a situation where the 3 judges who were allegedly supposed to be substitutes are no longer judges. Their terms of office from 2015 have expired, so all the current terms of office are not the same as those that are in any way tainted. There is certainly no possibility of challenging the status of Bogdan Święczkowski, president of the Constitutional Tribunal, who was elected in a properly uncontested procedure, but such a narrative is already being pushed by the government. The question arises, by what right does the Court of Justice decide on our constitutional body, the Constitutional Tribunal, and is it impartial and independent? This type of ruling does not function in the Polish system, because the rulings of international courts or international bodies, which the EU still is and hopefully will remain so for as long as possible, do not have direct power and are not a source of law in Poland. The ruling is the result of a complaint lodged by the European Commission in 2023. The Court of Justice of the European Union has about as much influence on the legality of the Polish Constitutional Tribunal and its rulings as I have on whether it will snow during the upcoming holidays. None. If we were to accept the logic of the Court of Justice of the European Union, they could soon question, for example, the position of the President of Poland. They would perhaps consider him to have been illegally elected. However, the Minister of Justice is following a narrative that resembles a submissive vassal approach to the decisions of the Court of Justice of the European Union. It is the most important EU court, which is also a Polish court. It decides whether the actions of our authorities are in line with EU law. EU law is also Polish law, and the treaties that Poland has concluded are binding on Poland and must be respected by us. But they do not take precedence over the Constitution, which Minister Żurek seems to have forgotten. What the Court of Justice of the European Union has done is simply beyond comprehension. Let's be clear, it is a so-called pseudo-court. It is not a court in the constitutional sense. This ruling by the court has no significance for the legal order in Poland because it was issued ultra vires, that is, beyond the powers conferred on it by the nation-states. In that case, what are the powers of the Court of Justice of the European Union? The Court of Justice of the European Union is a body that is supposed to harmonize the application of community law in member states, but community law is enacted by the institutions of the European Union only to the extent that the sovereign member states themselves have conferred on it the competence to enact that law. What is more, in 2021, the Constitutional Tribunal responded to a question from the Polish Prime Minister at the time, Mateusz Morawiecki, who wanted a comprehensive ruling on the conflict between European law and the Polish Constitution. The Constitutional Tribunal ruled that EU treaties cannot take precedence over the Polish Constitution. As a result, the European Commission asked the Polish government to withdraw the Prime Minister's inquiry. Is this what the sovereignty of the community's member states should look like? The Constitution is in force in Poland, and the Constitution takes precedence over all other acts, including acts of politicization of the Court of Justice of the European Union. Therefore, it is the Constitution that regulates the legal order in Poland. That is why judges emphasize. It is important that the Polish Constitutional Tribunal has repeatedly spoken on this subject, and the Constitutional Tribunal has stated, as the German Tribunal has stated, that the German Constitution is more important than the decisions of the pseudo-European Tribunal, just as the Polish court ruled that the decisions of the Polish Constitutional Tribunal are the most important. All the more so because
Nie jest niezależnym,
The Court of Justice of the European Union is not an independent, impartial court, but a body of the European Union composed of politicized members directly elected by politicians appointed by the governments of individual countries. Therefore, since its inception, this EU body has always sought and will always seek to interpret the law in such a way as to expand the powers of the European Union so that it always suits the European Union and not the sovereign nation states. So the judges of the Court of Justice of the European Union can be elected by politicians. In this case, no one is raising any objections about impartiality or independence. We are dealing with a strictly political body consisting of politicians appointed by member states or other individuals, but these are certainly not people who have democratic legitimacy. Therefore, this political body under the guise of the Tribunal is commenting on the competences of the Polish Constitutional Tribunal, that is, the body that has a monopoly on determining whether normative acts are in line with the Polish Constitution. It is the Polish Constitutional Tribunal that examines the constitutionality of Polish laws. This has always been the case and will continue to be so.